Hi there, and welcome to the podcast today. Thank you for joining me. I'm so thrilled you're here. Today, I'm going to be interviewing a very unique expert, and she is doing extraordinary work she's come out of the education sector, starting her own practice way back in COVID. And then today, she has a thriving practice where she's written a couple of books. She's just come back from New York City and been promoting her book and doing her book launch there. Photos are in Times Square if you have a look at some of her socials. And today we're going to go and learn about moving out of the education sector, coming into corporate, as well as going back to some of her clients in the education space and really leveraging the expertise that she has. So our very special guest today is a woman called Kylee Leota. So she is a leadership expert, and she's an author and speaker, and she empowers individuals, families and leaders to unlock their true potential. She creates safe spaces for growth, connection, meaning, and lasting change. Enjoy the conversation today. All right, welcome, Kylee. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jane, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Kylee, you have an incredible practice. You have achieved so much in your practice, and this journey that you've come from, coming out of, paid employment as in the education sector and all the things you've done, and now come into this world of having your own thought leadership practice. Are you happy to share a little bit about how you've got there and what you do, what you were doing before and now what you're doing today?
Yeah, for sure. So I always describe myself as an accidental business owner, accidental thought leadership practice owner, because I grew up wanting to be an educator my whole entire career, my whole entire life, really. Even from primary school, I wanted to be a music teacher, realized you need musical talent for that. That ruled me out. Um, Wanted to be like every 90s high school kid, I wanted to be a PE teacher,
Right.
the competitive market. Found my place in education where I could help people make sure their voice was heard through disability, complex behavior, and trauma. But really, what I have reflected on in hindsight was even back then, I had out of the box ideas to solving traditional problems. And I think really going back to how did I get here, it actually started way back then because traditional models didn't work for the young people that I was working with. So I've
Right.
always probably been a thought leader, but never really knew what it was, I guess.
Right.
So fast forward 20 years, because I'm a bit of a slow learner, I was in this position. I went to different positions. I held various leadership positions across different schools in regional office. I did lots of different things within the education sector. So I didn't stay stuck in one position for a long time. I did lots of different positioning,
Okay.
but I stayed in the one department, like the government department, for a long time.
Yep.
And it was actually an injury in 2019 that made me sit there. And I always joke that the universe was tried to be subtle and I wasn't picking up what it was putting down. So it just gave me such an injury that I had to reconceptualize how I did my work. So I sat in 2019 and went, oh my gosh, what if I can't do this anymore? What would I do? And I started, that was a bit of a whirlwind and a bit of a scary time for me. And I started looking at what did I like about what I did and what did I not like about what I did? And how could I turn this into something else?
Right.
And it was through that kind of started that journey about, I know that people come to me about this, and I know people come and talk to me about this and this and this. And that evolved into my practice essentially. And it started off very low key, just let a couple of people know what I was doing, but
Right.
then evolved into word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. And that's kind of led. Um, and then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to be doing this better. And that's when we connected. And then from there, that journey has just led into this constant evolution of my own growth, which has then led to my evolving practice.
Yeah. So who do you mostly work with now? Or is it a bit of a mix, or are you in a bit of a transition in your practice, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I work a lot with leaders, particularly executive leaders and aspiring leaders, but I also have a background in neurodivergence, so can fill that space both in a corporate and a non-corporate role. I work with a lot of educational leaders, and I do self-leadership, so helping people understand where they're at, really develop that self-awareness, and then help find some alignment between where they are and where they want to go. And my business is called Elements to Success, and that name came from Earl Nightingale's definition that success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal. And whether it be individually, at a team level, or at an organizational level, everyone needs different elements to create whatever that success is. So help people create the vision about what that looks like, whether it be individual, team, or organization.
Yeah.
And then we figure out what elements they need to get to that trajectory that they want to be on.
Right. And you've written your book, you've co-authored a
Yes.
second one. You've just come back from New York City and
Yeah.
promoting it over there, which is amazing. And photos, for those who are listening, go on Kylie's socials, you'll see the photos of Times Square. And tell us all about book writing and what that's done for you in your practice.
Yeah, so I am an avid reader, and I know that this is an audio, but if anyone sees video, there's like 1,000 books behind me, and they're all beautifully color coded. So I'm an avid reader, and it hadn't really occurred to me that I could be the author.
Right.
It was one of those things that you just grow up and go, oh, I'm just really hungry for more. And it's not that I didn't have ideas. It just never really occurred to me that I could. And then I started thinking about what it would look like. And, like most people, had a lot of imposter syndrome about what that would be. When you start comparing yourself to the likes of Brene Brown and Simon Sinek and Adam Grant, it's pretty easy to feel like that's a little bit out of reach. And then, one of my big things, so my book is called Infinite Leadership, Driving Continuous Improvement to Create Excellence for Everyone. And the E pillar of that was ecosystem. And the reason I talk about that now is because it's being part of the ecosystem that has helped me have the confidence to write my book, to have the confidence to show up, to confidence to get it to the end and get it published. And I didn't even cry half as much as I thought I would. Um, and I actually didn't hate the process. I got through that and I didn't get through the process and go, oh my gosh, I'll never do that again. I went through the process and went, oh, now I know what to do. Just going to be easier for the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
And I've been really fortunate that, yes, I went to New York for that impact book, which was a co-authored, and it was all very fancy in Times Square.
Mm.
Whilst I was there, I got the notification that another one that I published a chapter in, called Business Goddesses, also went to Amazon #1 whilst I was over there as well. So
Oh,
it was a
wow.
multi-success story. And that's part of it is around, again, using my pillar of infinite is really understanding myself and leaning into my strengths and my gifts, and coming from that place of really want to be of service of others. And maybe if the information I have will help others live their lives more purposefully and intentionally, and help them maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that I've had to go through, then, I see it as being service. And in actual fact, when I was in New York, I ran into somebody who I just randomly ran into at breakfast, who had read my book, and they were from Pennsylvania. Had read my Infinite Leadership book. So that was completely
Isn't that
trippy,
bizarre?
and just really reminded me that even though the world is big, the world is also small, and you just never know who you're going to touch and who you're going to have impact on. So that was really profound for me, that to not underestimate what we have to offer, because you just never know who it's going to resonate with.
That's incredible. Isn't it funny that just where a book can travel, like wherever it ends up, the beauty of the platforms, the distribution, socials, just, that's to be on the other side of the world and running to someone who'd read your book. That's phenomenal.
For sure. And I actually thought, I'm like, oh no, you can't be talking about my book. And
It
she
must be
actually
that other
messaged me on,
infinite
"Hey,
leadership book.
somebody, there must be another well, yeah. So I was sitting there going, oh no, maybe you're thinking about something else. And she actually messaged me on LinkedIn and said, no, it was your book, and we devoured it. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was mind blowing to me. And so I wish I'd remembered to take a photo in that moment, but we never think of those things at the time.
Yeah,
But that was
hindsight's
just
a
such a
wonderful thing.
powerful story, and just a powerful reminder to never underestimate the impact that you might have on, someone that you don't even know yet.
Yeah. So, Kylie, going a bit behind the scenes, that's a huge trajectory that you've been on since you've started your practice. Um, Going behind the scenes, because on the surface, like that all looks like it all just magically happens, and it just you make it look so easy. But are you happy to go a little bit behind the scenes? I'm keen to find out, What have been some of the challenges that you've had as part of, being able to build your practice?
Yeah, so, oh, look, so many. I often joke, and this was true of my career in government as well, but people think that I was doing things really easily because on the surface, I look like that duck on the water.
Hmm.
But people don't see what's going on underneath the little speedboat legs that are running under. And we were joking the other day that people think you got your ducks in a row, but mine were actually in the back of a police car. We were having that joke the other day because I guess what my career prepared me for is I'm really good in a crisis, and I'm really good at looking like I'm calm, even if I'm not. So
Yes.
it looks like everything's running along. I think behind the scenes, so uh, I'm a single mum of three kids, so raising three
Yeah,
kids on
right.
my own. I also left my government job to start my practice in 2020, which is COVID.
Mm,
So that was huge. And one of the things that I really had to come to terms with was that well, first of all, everyone thought I was crazy. So having my own back when
right,
maybe people couldn't see the vision that I had.
right.
And that takes huge amounts of courage because I have a
Yeah.
lot of self-doubt all the time about how I show up. So recognizing that in that moment I needed to have my own back. And that recently came up in a conversation with an email with somebody who actually said to me that they actually, in hindsight, can see how much courage that took in
Mm,
that moment.
right.
Um, I think the second one is I'm a really fast brain thinker. I'm very visionary. I'm very macro. I can do micro, but I don't really love it that much. So
Yes.
having to finding a right team to support me when I was ready to onboard a team. So first of all, was recognizing I couldn't do everything, and there was stuff that I had to absolutely I hated. So I needed to outsource that as fast as possible because it was draining my energy.
Right.
The second board was getting the right team around me to move those things forward, to allow me to step into my zone of genius, which is that visionary part, and
Right.
allow somebody to take that stuff that, 5 minutes of doing this thing over here feels like 5 hours for me because it's my zone of frustration versus my zone of genius. So there are two things in particular that I've really had to work on and constantly have to work on because it's an, you know, ongoing evolution. Your practice is
Yes.
never, and what served you at one point in your practice doesn't serve you when you get to the next level in your
Yes.
practice. So constantly being aware and conscious that you have to recalibrate your practice, I think is also really helpful to remember because then you're not as resentful about it when it happens.
Yes.
You don't get, instead of going, oh God, here I go again, you go, oh, okay, that's right. It's like the benefit of, oh, I had to pay a lot of money on tax this year. Well, isn't that because I'm grateful that I had an income that allowed me to do this rather than, oh gosh, I had to pay a lot of taxes
Yes.
this year. Same thing when you have to recalibrate. Isn't this exciting because I get to recalibrate because I've had so much growth in my journey. I need to recalibrate that then feel
Yes.
negative about it.
Yeah, you're so good at reframing and just going, okay, this is something new, different, I'm learning, I'm on the journey. And I think, that mindset, maybe it's coming out of the education field, the whole Carol Dweck, growth
Yeah.
mindset kind of space it just, it really is just so critical, isn't it? Just to keep going. It's okay. Look how far I've come. It means this, it means that. You're a great example of making
Oh,
of that mindset.
yeah, I think there's two things with that. I think, yes, definitely growth mindset. I also think because I've worked in complex environments for a really long time, seeing opportunity where maybe others don't see, like
Yeah.
opportunity and possibility
Yep.
because of that out of the box thinking. That's not to say that I don't have my own little internal tantrums and have to give myself the pep talk, put my big girl pants on and go do the thing,
Yes.
please don't, anyone that's listening, don't think that that doesn't happen also.
Right.
There's two parts to it. It's not like it's all rainbows and unicorns all the
Yes.
time. And I always, live in this, almost like halo moment of growth mindset. No, I still have those moments where I'm like, oh gosh, this is too hard today. But I think that Japanese saying about fall down 7, get up 8. I feel
Mm.
like fall down 77, get up 88, fall down 777, get up 888 kind of idea. And I think that's probably one of the things that I've got is I might get downtrodden at times, but that ability to pick myself up, put my big girl pants on and keep moving forward, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Because I think the world is more complex and chaotic than it has ever been. And we can't wait for it to be calm before we take action. I think we have to learn
Yes.
how to exist within the complexity.
Yeah.
And I think that's really that was a really big reframe for me about
Right.
do it even whilst it's hard. Not, when this happens, I'll be able to do that. Well, there's no such thing as a good time, so let's just do it now.
Um, I love that, Kylie. I'm wondering also, what role do you think that some of, you're obviously a member of our Women with Influence community, and what role do you think having the right people around you? You talked about team before, but more specifically around the right people around you who understand, what you're going through and growing a practice. What sort of value do you think that's brought for you in your growth?
Yeah. So two really clear things stand up for me is the first pillar in my infinite model is your identity.
Right,
And I know that this community has allow me to walk into my true identity and my authentic self versus what potentially I had before being in this community.
right,
Because, you know, whether it be the highly sensitive person or the visionary thinker, so you're crazy because you're out there or whatever, people may, well, I shouldn't say that because that's giving away my power. I allowed people to shrink me because I felt like my identity was too much for some people.
right,
Um, so the community is first and foremost allowed me to be authentically me, and for that I am forever grateful. Because it's really nice to have all of these big ideas and people go, oh my gosh, that's amazing, instead of looking at me like with fear and awe and oh my God, are you going to do that thing? So that's really beautiful. And the last pillar, I mean, there's lots between I and the E, and it is that ecosystem. And what I recognize through, unfortunately, some negative experiences is that many people are happy to support you to the level of their comfort
mm,
versus your comfort. So when you start to rise up and shine, there are many people that will try and bring you back down because it makes them feel uncomfortable versus you
right,
feeling uncomfortable. And what I love about this community is you have, again, a visionary idea and everyone's celebrating and cheering you on, which then allows you to walk in your own identity to go, yeah, I can do this, and keep that journey moving forward. And that's one of the things that I have most valued out of this community is the community where you can actually share that you've had a really good month, that you've had a really good quarter, that you've had a really good year, and celebrate those successes rather than the tall poppy syndrome of, particularly in Australian society, around
yes,
the fact that people need to cut you down to size because who do you think you are? And I
yes,
think the celebration of success and the absolute joy that we as members get out of seeing other people's successes and celebrating that, I think is very, very unique to any professional organizational collaboration I have been in over the many years I've been in leadership. And I think that's really exciting.
oh, that's great, Kylie. I think, the inspiration that not only others bring, but you bring, certainly it gives you that belief, doesn't it? That you're like, oh, okay, well, they've done that. So maybe I can do it. And it's not the self-doubt sort of eases off a little bit and you start looking for possibilities and, well, how did you do that? And, oh, well, maybe we can do that. And so you start to think a little more creatively as opposed to, critically and going, oh, but that's that person because they've done this, or because you know them. Rather than looking on social media and going, oh, they're so amazing, they're doing, so much better than me. But because you know them, you can ask the question, isn't it? Like you go, well, I
Yeah.
actually know this person. This person's in my board of directors, if you like.
Yes.
I can talk to them about this and they will take my question. Um,
I think the generosity part of the group is so what's the word I'm even looking for? So intentional in the group, and the amount of generosity in the group is second to none of any group. And I've been in a few. Like it's not like this was my first ever group, but the level of generosity and kindness and compassion to people walking beside you on a journey, even if they're ahead of the game, they've got generosity and compassion because they know what it's like to walk
yeah.
that walk that you've been through. And those that are coming, that maybe in a different level to you, that gives them hope about what's possible, but also allows you to provide that inspiration and aspiration for others potentially. And
Yeah.
but I still, you learn from everybody at every level because
Yes.
everyone's got such great gifts and their own unique identity, and everyone brings their own flavor to it. And it's so unique and just kind and compassionate, and everyone's incredible. And you've done a really great job of crafting that, because I know, there are organizations that just take everybody. And
Mm.
I think that is got its own strengths, but I think the challenge in that is that there's different people playing at different games. So you've crafted a beautiful community that is so supportive, and that's led by your example.
Oh, well, we're thrilled you're part of it, Kylie. Um, Kylie, if you think back to, so you're 5 years into your practice now.
Yeah.
If you reflect back on that time, in that 5 years, is there anything that, based on what you know now, that you would have done differently? Or had your time again, if you had your time again in that 5 years, is there anything you'd change, do differently, or not have done perhaps at all, or wish you'd done, that you didn't haven't been able to?
So a couple of things. I'm a really relational person and very visionary. So I know that systems are needed uh, to create the space, but I didn't prioritize them early enough. So I had this organized chaos going on for a couple of years prior to coming into the group, where I was doing really well, but it was chaotic.
Right.
So going back and getting those systems in place earlier, that board of directors that you talk about, those trusted advisors, um, being more selective initially in the first case about who they were, because there are a lot of people out there selling you snake oil about what they can do for you.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't know. You're the expert. You might know. So I've definitely upped my level of discernment around who I let in and who I observe from the sidelines and who I don't let in terms of that regard. I think the other thing would have been just, I guess, I took huge leap to have my own back to step into business, but constantly reminding myself to have my own back each step of the way, because I would get to a certain point and then I would forget to have my own back. So I'd go
Right.
back a little, you lose that little bit of, you start to question yourself and am I doing the right thing? And that's not because my business hasn't grown, because it's grown every year since I've been, it's not even like it's gone backwards. It's gone every year, but
Yeah.
that I think having a compassionate curiosity versus a judgment in that particular process, and then actioning those steps. And for me, because I'm visionary, I do sometimes need to break it down into the micro, because even I can get overwhelmed at how big my aspirations are. World domination, how big they are.
Yes.
So I have to take it down into the next chunk, because otherwise I get stuck in comparisonitis about these people that are way up here, and bringing it down to what's, that one foot in front of the other kind of story. What's the next best thing I can do right now?
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, great. And if someone was listening to this today, Kylie, who's on the journey of growing their practice and they're going, what advice would you have for them about, being able to grow a practice around your wisdom, your thought leadership? What would you tell them?
That ecosystem is so important,
Right.
and I don't think I got my ecosystem right until I got my identity right.
Right.
So really going back and doing the work on yourself about who you are and who you want to be, because I talk a lot about in my practice around being the thermostat or the thermometer. And the thermostat sets the temperature of the room. So you want to be in those temperatures, in those rooms with really high temperatures. Being a
Mm,
thermometer means that you can be dragged down really easily because you're taking the temperature of the room and engaged, so your level of success or failure will rise and flow because you're the thermometer, not the thermostat.
yeah, wow.
So understanding your own identity and your aspirational identity, because that sends your energy vibrations about who you attract, making sure that ecosystem is around supporting you and they've got a high comfort level to match your comfort level, so they're not going to shrink you, and being the thermostat, not the thermometer.
Oh, wow. What great advice. That's such powerful insights, Kylie. Um, Kylie, what are you up to over the next, what does the rest of this year look like for you? What are you working on? Where will you focus your efforts now?
Well, you'll be really excited to know. Over the weekend, I have just been tweaking my infinite leadership profile diagnostic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I have a short and a long form diagnostic that I'm just about to share with the community and then share with the wider group,
Okay.
and really celebrating my infinite leadership program and the pillars that creates, and targeting educational leaders, but also corporate, in how this can help them on their journey. But I got so excited over the weekend about this diagnostic, and I've tested it on a couple of people. And when I've checked in with them, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so accurate. So
Wow.
bringing that to the fore in the next little bit of time, but hopefully, and the thing about it is it's a value add into people's journey wherever they're at in their leadership journey, because infinite leadership relies on the fact that it's an ongoing evolution. So it kind of meets you where you're at and
Right.
helps you evolve into the next level.
Kylie, that's fantastic. Diagnostics are just so powerful for helping people to get that insight to know, well, where do I start? How does, it's great to see an idea, but how does this relate to me? And where do I sit, and what does my journey ahead look like versus, someone else? So that sounds really personalized and providing really valuable insight for people.
Yeah, and it was actually, I think one of the things that I do love about having a thought leadership practice is I get excited by my own stuff. And one of the things that I love is people go, oh, you're working on the weekend. I'm like, yeah, but I'm choosing to work on the weekend because I'm like so immersed in what I'm doing. And I love the idea of being able to help more people come to those realizations and to serve
Yes.
more people more powerfully.
Yes.
So that's a strong motivator to do what I do.
I love that. I was listening to an interview with Simon Baird the other day. He was the guy that sold Culture Kings along with his
Oh,
wife,
yes.
and he was saying, he's gone into his thought leadership practice around, helping entrepreneurs, and he said, I can go on holidays for the rest of my life. He said, people are saying to me, why are you doing this? And he goes, because this is what I love. He said, this is my hobby. Yes, I do it for a
Yes.
job, but it is also my hobby. That's why I get excited by it. I love it. So I think that's the kind of, the choice and the freedom and the fun and the fulfillment that you're trying to, really achieve, isn't it? As part of being able to build your practice.
Yeah, and it gives you, freedom. And, it's so funny because like over the weekend, so I saw a couple of clients on the weekend and somebody said to me, why are you doing work on the weekend? And I said, because I can and I like it. And but the flexibility and the freedom to craft a role that allows me to do the things that I need to do, because my family is really important to me. My kids are really important to me. So being able to craft something that allows me that flexibility and freedom to be there for them, and what that looks like, and allows me to go all in on this particular day or to step back on this particular day, and allows me to go, I think that's an invaluable opportunity that this practice gives versus anything else I've ever done.
Amazing. So just on that with, how do there'd be those who are going, oh my God, how does she do all that and juggle all your family commitments and how you do all that? Are you happy to share and you probably get this question all the time.
Yeah.
How do you do all that?
So one of my clients dead set believes I have a time machine. That is factually incorrect. She often says to me, oh, that's right, you've got that time machine. That's how you get
Right.
everything done. Um, One of the things that I learned very early on, and I can't even remember, I don't know, I was reading someone, I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been James Clear with Atomic Habits. I'm not really sure, but he talks about the freedom that comes from structure and routine,
Right.
and that structure and routine is not restrictive. It's actually freedom.
Yep.
And so I've got a really good routine. I'm an early riser. The running joke with my clients is Nana o'clock is 8:30 p.m. I like to go to bed early, but I'm also up at 4 a.m., which allows me to have some time, my own personal self-care in the morning, to write, to read, to talk to new people in the US or other markets, if that so aligns. But then I've got, set days where I do set things. So I, craft up Mondays to do a certain thing. I craft up Tuesdays to do a certain thing. So being able to, and again, because remember I said earlier, organized chaos for the first couple of years, I didn't have any of that in. So I was having to code switch from this kind of coaching to this kind of practice to this, and that was successful but not sustainable.
Mm.
So creating those structures and routines that worked for me was really about creating more sustainable, and longevity in my practice, and that's how I've crafted that. So it feels like I've been given back time, even though I've got the same amount of days everybody else does.
Right.
I can get a lot more done in my time because of that
Yes.
structure and routine,
Yeah,
I
it
guess.
reduces the friction is the routine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. For sure. And I think the other part of it too is I don't go so far as to be prescriptive in that, because some people are morning people like me, and others are absolutely not. They work better in the back end of things. So
Mm.
I don't necessarily prescribe to the 5 a.m. morning or anything like that kind of stuff. I think
Mm.
it's about figuring out, and I think I went through a lot of things that didn't work for me before I figured out what did work for me. So trial
Right.
and error, giving myself the grace to go, yeah, that's not working. I need to recalibrate something.
Okay.
But also, if I want something enough, then what am I going to give to get it?
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's meant, my kids are my greatest cheer squad, my greatest supporters, but it means that they've, whilst they're at sports, sometimes I'm at work or, I'm doing some things, but I make sure I carve out. And I think that's the other thing, carving out time for family as much as, because I could do business 24/7 in
Yes.
part because I love it.
Yes.
But carving out those days and having a plan, like the kids and I have a holiday coming up that we've been planning for 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, structure and routine actually gives you freedom rather than restriction, I think.
Yeah. Great advice. Kylie, for those who want to reach out, if they like to connect with you or they want to follow you, where are they best to do that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Kylee, Kylee, thanks mum, Leota, Leota, or elementsforsuccess.com.au. And you can find me on Facebook and Insta under Elements Number 4 Success.
Thank you, Kylie. You've shared so much wisdom today. I love your thinking and insights around not only your wisdom and expertise, particularly around your infinite leadership. I think you're coming in at a time where this work is so needed and people are looking for a way to be able to attract and retain great talent, to be able to get results, to be able to create meaningful places to work, all those types of things. The expertise and the knowledge that you have coming out of particularly around DEI, that sort of space, and then being able to take those skills into workplaces, your books you've created, your diagnostic that's coming out soon, the body of work, you are so prolific in what you are creating and the IP that you're creating. I think it's really exciting to see your journey and to see all the bits that every day there's something exciting happening. There's someone that you're talking to, there's someone that's seen your work, and there's an opportunity. You've got speaking coming, you've done show reels, you've done all the IP and assets for that. So it's really exciting to see your journey, and we're all cheering you on.
Oh, thanks, Jane. And again, I love this community because it's helped put some guardrails again without being restricted to help me organize those thoughts into a more succinct way to be able to get that IP rather than getting stuck in my own head about it. I think that's one of the things that we particularly as women maybe
Yeah.
do is we get stuck in our own head so much, and the gift of this community and yourself leading it has been allowing me to get those thoughts out and action them to then generate. And it will be often that someone will say to me, "Oh my gosh, I see you everywhere," and I'm like, "I'm actually not." It's just that thought leadership. I've kind of got that role going on now, and again that vision of service. So just wanting to share to serve,
Yeah.
and that actually has given me the freedom to even put my content out there without overthinking and overanalyzing and doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Like, it's easy I think sometimes people sometimes shy away a little bit from it sometimes at first, because they go, oh, that's so, the spotlight's on you. I'm not a center of attention kind of person. And, I prefer to help other people. But really, that is what we're doing. It's just, we're not here because we're saying, look at me, I'm such a rock star. That's not why we're here at all. I love what you say there, which is it really is around intentionality. We're here to help and serve other people. And by default, we tend to grow a practice as a result of that. But it's not about being the center of attention and having, 2 million Instagram followers, breaking the internet, all those things it's about, that contribution and making positive change.
For sure. And I think that was one of the really big reframes for me that really unlocked that my ability to even put myself out on socials more frequently. And I think the other misconception is people go, well, Kylie, you're an extrovert, so it's easy for you. It's really actually not. Just
Yeah.
because I get energy from being around people and
Yes.
from that relational connection doesn't make it any easier for me as an extrovert to potentially someone who's an introvert, because we have different challenges, and but that overthinking and overanalyzing and all of those things that come with that are still the same. So I think, but seeing yourself through the eyes of service, I think has definitely been that most powerful reframe for me to put my stuff out there and just put it out into the universe and hope that some random person in Pennsylvania will pick it up. No,
Yes.
but yeah, random people in
Right.
random locations will find it and it'll be of service to them and
Yeah.
help them on their journey.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Kylie. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I look forward to seeing what happens over the next 12 to 18 months for you.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And thanks, Jane, for walking beside me on this journey.